Hello and welcome. My name is Alonda Carter and I am the Recovering Hunbot, and this is season 2 of Hey Hun, You Woke Up. This podcast is brought to you on 10 podcast platforms, including Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Google, and Anchor. The video version is on YouTube. Today I am chatting with Dr. Máire O Sullivan. I met Dr. Sullivan because she and I were both on the steering committee for the recent conference, Multilevel Marketing, a Consumer Protection Challenge. Dr. O'Sullivan lectures at Munster Technological University in Ireland, and her research focuses on female consumer behavior. She has written for The Conservation on the Anti-Mlm movement and researched MLM advertising targeting women in particular. Her PhD is from University College Cork, and she says her dogs Zoom bomb a lot of her committee meetings. Our conversation meanders around the subject of multi-level marketing, and I found her knowledge to be very insightful. Please welcome Dr. O'Sullivan to the show. Máire, thank you so very much for joining me today. And I want to ask you, how is it you became involved in doing research in multi-level marketing of all things? Because there's not many people doing that.
That's probably one of the reasons, because there weren't a lot of people doing it. What I really got interested in was actually the anti-MLM movement. That's how I got into this. So I sort of spotted this starting to take hold, I guess. I saw anti-MLM on Reddit. I became aware of the Facebook group Sounds Like MLM But Okay, which is now shutting down. And yeah, I just sort of thought, oh, that's an interesting sort of phenomenon, a grassroots consumer movement. And I had been to a Mary Kay party once in my early 20s. Somebody's aunt was selling it and we all got invited. And I kind of wasn't, and I know one of my mom's neighbors did Stella and Dot. And some of their stuff was kind of cute. It seemed a bit expensive, but quite cute. And so it seemed a very harmless thing to me. And then when I started to, I suppose, view some of the anti-MLM content, I was like, wow, people have really strong feelings about this. I wasn't sort of aware that people saw it as so problematic. And then I discussed it with a professor at the university that I was working with at the time. She's also in marketing, and she kind of said to me, oh, do you have any new directions for research you want to look at? And I said, well, I'm actually really interested in this. And she was like, oh my God, me too. Me too. I'm so interested in this as well. So we had both sort of seen this starting to bubble up a little bit. And yeah, so it was actually the anti-MLM movement. I was like, wow, that's really interesting that people are this passionate about it, that people are, I guess, have such strong opinions on this. I'm really interested in this kind of consumer activism. And so, started to look into it more and more.
Well,
I think the first thing we did was we bought a copy of Robert Fitzpatrick's book between us. Because university budgets,
Well, that's really interesting because myself, it's like I didn't know, having been involved in Beachbody because I was a Hunbot, hence I'm the recovering Hunbot. I had no idea that there was this movement, but it kind of like came into my world, and that's how I started getting involved. And I wanted to understand it and understand what the heck I had been involved in. And one of the things that you hear from company to company, it doesn't matter whatever name you slap on it, is that we're uplifting and empowering women. And when you really look at it, it's anything but, because even if there is someone who is a female that's like the CEO, typically there's usually somebody behind the scenes that's a man that's in charge. And usually there are men that are in charge. So I wanted to, talk to you a little bit about this whole, I guess, myth that it is empowering women when it's actually more like enslaving them and entrapping them into a system where they're not going to win, since most people aren't succeeding. So
so my research interests have always been basically about female consumption, women's consumption. My PhD is in consumer behavior, and I studied a female consumption group. and looked at how they sort of provided, well, but what we came up with was that they were providing therapy for each other, essentially, that they were engaged in a therapeutic process, but the consumption was really quite key to it, which is kind of different from some other papers that had been written, basically. um, but so that was what I suppose attracted this to me, was that this was very much focused on women. And I think the day I saw the Timeless V article headlined "MLM as a feminist issue," it was like, oh hey, that was light bulbs flashing for me, because again, I'm quite interested in doing feminist research. I'm quite interested in doing research that takes a kind of a critical feminist eye on things. And so yeah, that was what jumped out at me. I think I saw that article and I was like, oh, I should definitely like look into this. And yeah, there's been a article last year, I think, which was called something like I can't remember the exact title, but it was like MLM claims to be feminism, but it's making men rich, and sort of looked at the CEOs of many of these companies. And so yeah, when you look at that structure, the top levels in some of these companies are men, and they are the ones who are getting very rich. The lower levels, the grassroots, the people who are out there trying to sell product and recruit people, in most companies tend to be women. So the stats around the world hover at around 70% female. It varies from country to country and region to region, but it's in and around the 70% mark in most places.
I think it's interesting that worldwide that it is predominantly women, but yet at the
Mm,
same time, as we discussed earlier, and we'll talk about some of that now, is that there is a segment of this that tends to attract more men than women. And I'm talking about
mm,
all of these cryptocurrency MLMs, which I find so fascinating that they've really zeroed in on a way to basically like suck men into this world. But at the same time, there are women involved in it too. But predominantly, it's like men lead the pack in that, which
yeah.
is fascinating. So can you talk a little bit about what's happening over on, your side of the pond in this world?
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, crypto and forex is absolutely massive in both the UK and in Ireland. I taught a class actually in strategic marketing this year. So my students were final year marketing students. They were probably kind of 22, 23 was the kind of average age group. And we actually did a marketing project for a local credit union. And straight away, my students were asking this person from the credit union, do you stuff with crypto? Do you do stuff with forex? And the guy from the credit union was like, absolutely not. We're one of the most conservative, fiscally prudent, like, financial institutions. But what they wanted was, something like their so Revolut is the app that we use here. I know Venmo and stuff like that is more popular in the States, but Revolut has things to buy stocks, buy crypto, buy whatever. Um, but yeah, it's really massive here, particularly with young men. There was an article, I think 2 years ago in the BBC, about a guy from London, a very low income area of London, and how much money he had made and how he had bought like all the flats around him and had this magnificent car and whatever. One of my colleagues actually went and looked up the property register and was like, he does not own a single flat. He checked the license plate of the car. He was like, he does not own that car. It is a complete front, to basically sell then this guy's classes on how to get rich doing forex, or crypto. And unfortunately, the BBC, and I talked to someone at the BBC since, and I was like, yeah, so you guys did this story, and she was like, oh my god, I know. Like, she was genuinely embarrassed about this story that was like still on the BBC website, about this young man who was so incredibly successful. And I've actually heard a few great stories again from around London, in like the very expensive areas of London, where people will basically rent like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and like park them outside someone's really expensive house and like pose on them until the security guards come and move them along. And then those pictures are used to sell this vision of success, which is then used to sell this, like, enroll in my program and enroll other people in my program. And the training is pretty flimsy. So I would have to say some of those are just straight pyramids. There's no product. There's no value item that you could then claim legally it's an MLM. I think they're just, a lot of them are just straight pyramids. And we've seen that with OneCoin, where it
Yeah.
turned out there was no actual coin and it just was a straight pyramid.
Yeah, which is still operating, which is really quite, amazing that people still believe in this fraudulent organization. And then there's so many other ones that are going on. It's just like I feel like every time you sneeze, there's another one that's mentioned, and people are, and mostly men, continue to be attracted to this and drawn to it, thinking that somehow they're going to be able to become wealthy from investing in this, which is
I mean,
relies upon their training, which is less than stellar, to put it mildly.
it's so tempting. I mean, you hear about people who bought, two Bitcoin 10 years ago and, you know, have, it's worth millions now. I listened to a great podcast recently about someone trying to find their lost Bitcoin. Turned out they had actually sold it when it was worth nothing. But like the dream is there that like, oh my God, I'm gonna be like a Kardashian tomorrow once I just, wait for this Bitcoin to go through the roof. Or but obviously because Bitcoin is worth so much now, you want the one that's going to be the next Bitcoin, the Bitcoin killer. Um, and the chances are that, I don't know, like there was a crash a couple of days ago, because people were starting to talk about governments releasing their own cryptos and things like that, and so that would sort of, because it would then be backed by an actual financial system, and you're like, well, isn't that just what money is? But
Yeah, it's a very fascinating world. And you mentioned something that made me think of, and I was talking to you about the Shanann Watts case earlier, because part of Lavelle Thrive, what they have are these thrive and drive things where you go to a dealership and then you can sit in the car, so that because you're trying to earn the car bonus. And it's kind of like the same thing where they're all posing. So you're acting as if you're envisioning that life of what it would be like, which I find to be problematic at best. I mean, I'm trying to use very polite words because I'd like to throw in a whole bunch of other ones. So use your imagination on all of that. But it seems to be very much the same sort of thing of it's not reality, but yet people are presenting a lifestyle, because that's really what they're selling, is the idea that you can attain this lifestyle that the person themselves don't even have. Shanann was in massive debt. They'd already filed
yeah.
bankruptcy once. And it kind of begs the question of how many other people are going into massive debt to make it appear as if everything's hunky dory. Have you come across any of that in your research?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that that's not, I guess, limited to MLMs. This fake it till you make it is really pushed in MLMs. But I think that for younger people probably coming up now, they all need to understand that your Instagram life is not your real life. You only post the pictures when you're out at a cool club with your friends, or you have, you're on the beach and it's beautiful and it's white sands, or whatever. You don't post the picture of you scrubbing the toilet, right? Nobody's gonna post the like boring minutiae of their everyday life. And so it does seem like that everyone is more fun than me, everyone has more money than me, everyone has more excitement than me. And again, we're sold these visions of like, I don't mean to bash the Kardashians, they do what they do, but like we're sold this vision of like extreme consumption as the goal, as the dream. Once you achieve this status of like more money than you can know what you do to do with, then you will be truly happy, then everything will be fine once you get that, and that is the goal for everybody. And um yeah, I guess maybe as I and when I was younger, like I kind of bought into it more, but I guess as I've aged a little bit, I'm like, I have enough. It's grand, like it's grand. Not that I wouldn't love to have, a few, a Ferrari or whatever, but like my car goes just fine. It goes from place to place and gets me there. And I just think, yeah, there's but this consumer culture and this constant drive for more, is really insidious in everything, I guess, now. And I think we need to think about how healthy that is. Um, but the fake it till you make it, this 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 is what will give you the thing. And we could talk about toxic positivity. We could talk about, the secret, and what you put out into the universe is what will come back to you, and no negative vibes or whatever. It's all very problematic thinking. If you want me to get deep into this, there's a French philosopher, whose name completely escapes me right now. But he talks about how happiness itself is a new expectation, that in the past people really did not expect to be happy. um, that you would expect maybe a few good moments in your life, but um, suffering was sort of the human lot and the expectation. And so we put this pressure on ourselves. Obviously, that's, it's better that people aren't suffering all the time, and it's not awful for everybody. um, but there's this expectation that we put on ourselves to be happy all the time, to be positive all the time, to um um his name keeps like coming to the front of my brain and then disappearing. But it's
Mhm.
he talks about moments of grace, that what we can expect from our lives is not to always be at this incredible high point, that most of the and hopefully not to be at this awful low, but that our lives are just going to be middle, and there will be these moments of grace. And in focusing always on what you don't have, or how you get to this constant state of happiness, you actually miss these moments of grace, which might just be like, I'm sitting on the couch with my dog, and my dog is really happy, and this is really nice. My life is really nice right now. And just taking the moment to appreciate that, I guess it's kind of almost like a mindfulness thing as well, of like, things are pretty good, aren't they? Like, things are okay. We're all coming through a pandemic. The year's been rough on us all, but like, things are pretty good. But instead, you have to constantly strive for and try to achieve this like nirvana state of perfection. And that is what some of these people are selling. It's this Instagram life. It's this, I spend my life touring the world, and I'm making passive income money when I sleep. You hear this all the time, the passive income. And um, other people are basically doing the work for me, and out there gathering money for me. And I'm just like jetting around the world on beaches being an influencer, or whatever the dream is. It's yeah, it's just, maybe it shouldn't be the dream. That's
I agree with you. And it's something that I've talked about before is like, when is enough enough? Like, I'm happy with my life. Do we live in a mansion? I mean, the home that we're getting, is it a mansion? No, it's not. But you know what? To me, it's my own little mansion. I love the floor plan. I love everything about it. Do I really need something else where there's like, I don't know, 16 bedrooms and 25 bathrooms and all? I don't really want that. Why is it that, we're supposed to, according to what's put out there of achieving all of this, to aspire to have just this, I guess, gluttony
mm,
of things, of the consumerism,
yeah.
and just continue to have the most lavish lifestyle. Why can't people find happiness? And I think there's plenty of it to be found in just living a quote unquote regular life. Because you're right. Like, I sit with my dogs last night. Chalupa was like snuggled up next to me. And I was just so content in that moment, going, it feels so good to have his little body next to me. And I was watching something on Netflix. And I mean, and then MLM, I mean, don't watch Netflix because you need to be working. If you really are,
Hustle.
yeah, it's like, don't take any moments to do anything that you find enjoyable, because you got to get to that next level. So you got to keep working. You can get to that later, but you got to sacrifice now. And I don't want to sacrifice to be chasing after something that the likelihood of attaining isn't going to happen. Nor do I want to have a yacht, nor do I want to be jetting all over the world all the time. I mean, why do people feel like the laptop lifestyle is the lifestyle that everybody should have? I mean, who would be doing the work, number one? And I really don't understand why that's a thing. And I think it goes back to what you were saying about the whole Instagram thing, is that, yeah, everybody keeps seeing these things where it appears as if somebody is having this fabulous life. But the reality is they still scrub the toilet. They still do something that's not all glamorous. And I think that
Yeah.
we've gotten into and going into the toxic positivity, because that whole mindset in multi-level marketing of continuing to reframe everything and make everything positive. It's like, if anything happens that's less than stellar, I feel like you almost become mentally crippled and don't know how to handle it, because you're working so very hard to make everything around you positive. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
No, absolutely. I mean, toxic positivity is something that like psychologists are talking about now as a real problem. This idea that we have to force ourselves to be happy all the time. It's damaging. Okay. Sometimes something bad happens. Sometimes, it's okay to feel grief if somebody dies, or it's okay to feel sad or stressed by the fact that there's this pandemic happening. It's to be in touch with your own emotions and understand where that's coming from. It's good for you, you know. And so this toxic positivity, I guess it all kind of goes back to The Secret, and Oprah Winfrey has a lot to answer for in the world. I have some other questions for her, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, but The Secret, basically the idea, for I'm sure people know, but it's that what you put out into the universe is what you get back in return. That's actually a very damaging idea, because that means that if you are um, if your house is robbed, or if you are assaulted, or if something awful happens to you, if there's a natural disaster, well, I guess you put out negative vibes and you attracted negativity to you. So you're really to blame. And okay, it's a less extreme version than that, but we see that in the MLM, where it's like, oh, well, you didn't work hard enough, you didn't hustle hard enough. It's not that the business model means that 99% of people will fail, and I'm sorry, you're one of those 99%. You're not one of the 1% who do great. You know, um, it's that you didn't hustle hard enough, you didn't try hard enough, you didn't work for this. You had the wrong mindset. You listen to critics. If you listen to critics and you think about, if you have questions about this, if you have worries about this, that's you destroying your own dreams. So it's very victim blaming, I guess, and
Mhm.
it's very toxic. I mean, it's called toxic positivity for a reason. Um, but yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what my point is. Just don't do that, people. Like, be in touch with your real emotions,
Well,
and don't blame people for bad things that happen to them.
I feel like, the world of MLM and this whole idea of, manifesting and, the secret, all of that stuff, it suppresses what it means to be human. And to be human means there are a range of emotions that you experience within your life. And to force it into a box of happiness, sunshine, and light and unicorns is really, I feel like it's so very damaging. And when you're in MLM, you're around all these other people doing that too, that it continues to strip away your humanity. And it's almost like you're a pod person. I don't know if you remember the movie. What is that movie with the pod people?
One
Invasion
where
of the
he
Body
screams.
Snatchers, Invasion of the Body
Yeah.
Snatchers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like a
Yeah.
Stepford wife type thing. It's like you become something else. Now, here in the States, a lot of times in the anti-MLM community, there's a lot of focus on MLMs within the States, because it's, like, so many people here are involved in that community. But outside of the States, there's so many MLMs going on that people don't know about. And personally, I like digging into those because I find it fascinating and frustrating and horrifying and a lot of other words. But I'd like to know which ones are, quote, big, that people are heavily involved in, that we probably have no idea even exist.
I mean, so the American MLMs are here. There's Mary Kay, and there's Rodan and Fields, and Unique, and so on. So I can talk from, I've lived in the north of England, sort of Lancashire area, Cheshire area, and then I moved back to Ireland, where I'm from originally, and I live in the very south of Ireland, um, in the Republic, and in the southwest corner. Um, So the things that I particularly have seen between Ireland and the UK, they tend to be treated as sort of one market most of the time. Um, there are two big high street brands which have MLM branches in the UK. That's Ann Summers, which is a sex and lingerie shop, and The Body Shop, which I think everybody probably knows. It's a huge sort of cosmetics empire, and they have The Body Shop at home. And so Ann Summers parties were like a very, risque, giggly thing when I was like in college. People would go to an Ann Summers party to like see some lingerie and a vibrator or whatever. So those are two huge ones. Then the other ones that I guess are more European. FM World is very big in the UK right now. I think it's a Polish company originally, and they sell perfumes. So the idea is that if you like, I don't know, I usually wear Calvin Klein Euphoria, right? And I can say this to the vendor and they'll say, well, I can give you this that smells quite like Calvin Klein Euphoria for, half the price or whatever. And there's a company in from Portugal that does this like with shops and concessions, like normal normal supply chain, I guess. But this FM World is quite, it seems to be quite big. I don't know. It just seems to be very much on social media right now. The other one that I've seen more recently is, I think it's called IntelliTravel. And I think the reason that I've seen this a lot is that a sort of it might even be polite to call her D-list celebrity, like a low ranking reality TV celebrity type person called Vicky Pattinson has recently got involved with them, and so she promotes that a lot in her social media. And I think you said it, because these people, because you feel like you have a relationship with these people, that you already know them, and if you're following them on social media, they feel like a friend to you or a family member to you. I know you said it, you said parasocial relationships. That you feel like you can trust this person already because you have this established relationship. And so she is, I think, recruiting quite a lot for this, and that's probably why it's so visible right now. And I have seen reports. I don't have like an authoritative source on this, but I have seen reports that they are paying a £50 signing bonus for each person you sign up to the company, which under FTC rules, I believe that would be illegal, because if you're paying for recruitment at that point. Um, yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Obviously, the FTC has no jurisdiction in the UK, but I mean, I would most of the laws around this kind of follow the model from the US, because that's where MLM got its start.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's always so interesting to me that there are these like D-list celebrities or whatever that join these things and then get massive followings. Well, of course you're going to get a massive following because people are watching you on whatever show you used to be on, like Tori Spelling, and she's with, I want to say New Skin, if I remember correctly. It's just like, and I sometimes I wonder, it's like, okay, well, does the PR person behind them, I mean, are they doing their due diligence and letting people know this is really not a good idea? This is really not a good business to get in, or do they even care? I mean, I honestly don't know. I'm just like kind of talking about just like things that go on in my own head. It's like, what is going on? Because I think a lot of times it stems back to people overall in general do not really understand how destructive these are. And I think that this was kind of brought out in a weird way in the conference we were both recently a part of, because there was very marked difference between how regulators viewed multi-level marketing versus like the rest of us, so to speak, because we see all the problems, but the regulators, because I don't think that they are familiar with, all the different stories that we hear and all the different things that we come across, and view it in a different way. Do you have any thoughts on like why there is this huge disconnect in that?
Not really. I mean, I suppose I know that like there are people who come out of this with positive experiences. Okay. Claudia Gross, she did her PhD in Germany on Tupperware groups. And like some of these women, would just, it was in these extremely religious communities. This was a little outlet for them. They didn't spend a lot of money on it. They would gather together on a Thursday to talk about their Tupperware business, but really it was a social engagement for them. it wasn't, there was no pressure to sell, there was no pressure to recruit. It was just a thing, a way of facilitating, I guess, a social engagement for them. And that's pretty similar to what I talked about with knitting circles in my PhD, right? It's just a reason to get together, or a thing that you have in common that you can talk about, a way for you to interact with other women, which is nice. But I think what really becomes deeply problematic is when we see these uplines that are almost cult-like, where it's like, oh, anyone who doesn't believe in you, you have to cut off. If anyone isn't buying from you, then they don't believe in you, so just cut them out. You have to spend hours and hours on these calls, training calls. You have to, go to these events, and if you don't go to the events, then you're not committed, and we're going to cut you out because you're one of those people. And so it takes over your life for some of these people. And it almost seems like, I know Steve Hassan has talked about the cult-like behavior, but it almost becomes like a sleep deprivation thing, where it's like this constant bombardment of messaging. You can't be away from the group for too long because you might start to think independently. So we're going to have a call every evening, and if you're serious about your business, you have to be on every single call. You have to be at every single meetup. It just becomes a huge source of stress for people. And then with the toxic positivity, if you don't succeed, you have this deep shame because you did something wrong, clearly. It couldn't have been that 99% of people fail, and that the business model doesn't work for most people. It's that you personally have failed and you personally did something wrong. And those relationships that you formed, if you're in one of those very toxic situations, well, they were completely conditional. You're now cut off from that what was your friend group, your support network. So that's over. So it's very hurtful for people, and I think people do, it's very traumatic for people. It's like losing a part of yourself if you do decide to come away from this and to cut this out, because it's become such an important part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the sleep deprivation, because I did not make this connection until like a long time after I got out of Beachbody, but I can remember hearing things like, well, get up earlier, stay up later. And it's like, that's kind of encouraging, sleep deprivation, because if you're really serious, you're going to be, it goes back to sacrificing, be having the willingness to sacrifice for right now as you build this, because then you'll get the passive income, which is totally not the case. It didn't matter that, you could have stayed up till 3 a.m. and gotten up at 4 a.m. and it still wasn't going to work. And you also brought up a very good point. And another part, I think that's such a draw for women, is that, we're a chatty little bunch, I mean, women are very social, and we like to just, hang out with our girlfriends and stuff. And there comes a time in your life when, if you're not in school and you're kind of like starting your adult life, so to speak, that connection that you once had, you don't have it anymore. So it can feel, that community of being part of something can have such an emotional draw for people. And then to be that love bombing you experience, and to feel like you are part of something again, and you're accepted, and that you're all committed to the same thing. I think it goes back again to the toxic positivity. But while it can appear on the surface to be like a positive type thing, I thought it was a positive type thing. But most people, when they walk away from it and then they lose those relationships, all of a sudden it's like you start seeing it for what it really is. And it never was what you thought it was. It's almost like, the world of Oz. It's like, who's controlling all of this? Because the reality of it is, I think, so hidden. It's almost like you're walking around with like gauze over your eyes or something, because you're just not seeing the world with true colors and true intentions of anything, because it's all just polluted by the idea that people are going to be able to have more time with their family, have more money, and to keep working and working and working. Now, in the UK and in Ireland, are women talking openly like they are here about their experiences being negative? Do you hear people? Is there some kind of groups that are there that have formed that are speaking out?
Yeah, in the UK, definitely. So Ireland just has such a small population that I imagine that is why we're sort of being overlooked in some ways by MLMs. That tends to happen, that we're just not a valuable enough market. So we'll say when the UK Brexited, Amazon was just like to us, you need to order from .fr or .de, so you need to order from French Amazon or German Amazon. Like, there's not going to be an Irish Amazon. Come on, that's not worth anyone's time or money, right? So I feel like that's pretty similar with the MLMs. Like, we'll get into the UK, that has a big population. Ireland, we'll see what happens. Some people might show up, some people might not. So I think the focus is probably on the UK. And so again, there are groups in the UK. I believe there's in fact a sort of a petition for like MPs at the moment, to sort of look at this issue in the UK. I think there might even be a protest planned over the summer at some stage. Some people who are very sort of activist in some of these groups. And there's definitely discussion around it. I mean, Hannah Martin has done fantastic work. If anyone has not watched her presentation, which was the last one of the conference, so interesting, so well researched, and quite emotional, actually. I don't know, I found it quite upsetting to see these people who are again portraying this Instagram lifestyle, and then Hannah had a lot of the kind of company financials for those people, and are just making no money or in debt. So yeah, there's what was the question? I've gone off on a complete tangent.
About if there are, like groups there that are kind of, like
Mm.
anti-MLM type things, activists, that are speaking
Yeah,
out.
I mean, definitely in the UK, there is more, I would say, than in Ireland, probably just because there are not as many sellers here. Um, Now, I did I did get an approach right at the start of the pandemic, and it was my first ever recruitment pitch. I got Hey Hund. I was literally so excited. I was I had coronavirus. I had been quite sick, and so I was literally lying on a deck chair in the sunshine, like reading a book and kind of going, because I was still having real trouble catching my breath. And my neighbor's house is like, we're kind of on a hill, so my house is a little bit higher, and he was on the roof of his shed, so he was basically chatting to me over his shoulder while he was on the roof of his shed. And I was like, oh my god, I think I'm about to get pitched an MLM. And he was like, what is happening? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm so excited. And then I had to explain to him what an MLM was and how I was doing research on it and all this kind of stuff. And I did. So this person that I had hired for a job a few years back for a company that I was working for at the time, um, she had suddenly started liking. I don't post a lot on Facebook, but I do post pictures of my dogs because obviously they're gorgeous and wonderful, and everybody deserves to see them. So but I suddenly noticed she was like liking like a lot of stuff, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like, I haven't heard from her in years. Don't know how she's doing. Don't know if she still works at that company. I don't, and I kind of had left that life behind. Um, and yeah, and then I was just like, wow, she's really invested in my dogs all of a sudden. I guess she likes the dogs. And then the pitch came, hi, how are you? Are you back in Ireland or whatever? And I was like, yeah, I'm home. And she's like, wow, yeah, so things are so crazy. And I'm like, yeah, things are pretty crazy. It's like April of last year, we were all going, how long is this going on for? um, and then the pitch was, are you secure in your job? And I sort of thought, yeah, I work for the government, I'm a civil servant basically. Like, I'm part of the teachers union of Ireland. I'm fine. Um, just really, yeah, I'm paid by the Department of Education and I work for the teacher and I'm part of the teachers union. Like, it would be tough, but unless I did something really extreme, it would be tough for me to be in trouble. Everything's fine. And she was like, oh, that's great, that's good, and whatever. And then I was like waiting, and I was like, my husband is working from home or whatever. Like, I just wanted it to come. I was like, come on, do it, girl, do it. And she was like, oh yeah, I've been really worried. And so I decided to get a side hustle or whatever. And this is what and so I've been selling these, I think they were water filters. I refer to it as one of the magic water
Is it a
companies.
magic?
Um, no, it's something, it's ASEAN or something. Oh, so then she said to me, do you know about the redox chemistry? And I started laughing. I was like, yeah, because I have a degree in chemistry. My bachelor's is in pharmaceutical chemistry. Yeah, I took a whole module. I think I had a whole semester where one of my modules was just called redox chemistry. Like I know what an oxidation reduction reaction is. Um, she did not, I'll be honest. She tried to explain what redox chemistry was to me, and I was like, I don't think you would have passed that final. But yeah, so she was telling me about how she was selling these things, and I said, look, to be honest, I've done some research into this. I sent her a copy of an article I wrote for The Conversation about the rise of anti-MLM. And I said, some people have really bad experiences with this. Just, make sure that you don't invest too much money. Keep a profit and loss spreadsheet. I think that is one of the most important thing people can do. If they want to do this, that's their choice. Absolutely. Track your profit and loss, and then take your profit and divide it by how many hours you spend it on. And if it's less money than you would make stocking the shelves in Tesco, it might just be better to get a part-time job, Um, and so again, I mean, someone had worked out recently on, and so she said basically that, she was, thanks for sending me the article. It was very interesting, and I haven't seen anything bad, but I'll keep an eye out or whatever. And I guess, okay, fine. But I did think, yeah, that was like the worst possible pitch to give to me, because like I couldn't be a worse prospect. Like, degree in chemistry, PhD in business, like I'm not a good candidate for this product. So yeah, as far as I can tell, it's just salty water from
Is,
what I read on their website.
is it ASEA?
Yeah.
ASEA or whatever? Yeah. Okay, that's one
Yeah, something like that.
that's on my Trello board to do a deep dive on, which I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
My board is like
I'll be so
daily.
excited to watch that, because I read the thing and I looked at their website, and like I said to her, I've just gone on the website. Is it this company? Because obviously you don't name the company. So I said, is it this company? When I Googled redox chemistry and MLM, this is what came up. And I said, their website is all about recruiting. It was very difficult to find out about the product on the website. It was mostly about recruiting. That to me is alarm bells. Sorry. But so yeah, I mean, as I said, I couldn't have been a worse prospect for her. And I just think, obviously I came onto the list of like, here are your Facebook friends, and have you pitched them all?
Yeah.
And I must have been somewhere near the bottom of the list, because as I said, I hadn't seen her in years. But I just, yeah, it was a really interesting one.
A while back, I attended, and now I just did this on Facebook. I did it for content, a pure romance, Facebook party. Cause I'm like, what's going on here? So I did a video about it, cause I had to, and this person who was a Hun who became my friend, it's like, have you not looked at any of my posts? Because all I really post on there are like the videos that I'm doing about anti-MLM stuff. And it's like, do you not have a clue that I am so not your target, that it's not going to ever fit?
My presentation at the conference was sort of some of the advertising that I find to be deeply problematic and misogynistic. And my new low point is a pure romance ad for a product called Like a Virgin.
It is not.
It is a tightening cream. I don't know how graphic you want me to get here. Essentially, it is to make sex worse for a woman, so it's better for a dude. And it is called Like a Virgin. And I just thought, oh my God.
Oh.
And they people who sell this call themselves sex educators and say like it's a really sex positive company. And it's just like, I'm sorry, that's so gross. The fetishization of virginhood, I could talk about for another hour. Gross. But also, like, how can you sell a product called that and think that you are in any way sex positive? And I've actually
empowering.
And uplifting and empowering women. Yeah, empowering women. Yeah. And I've seen some petitions recently, actually, for Pure Romance getting involved in Pride events, and petitions to sort of block Pure Romance from getting involved in Pride events. I understand that they have a transgender charity. The founder has one because one of his children is trans. And so I guess that's sort of the angle they've come at it from. But um, they're known to be a very heteronormative company. You know, they only recruit women as salespeople, and they only allow women to attend the events. And then, I mean, this product, like a virgin, I can't get over it, how problematic it is. But yeah, and then kind of getting involved in Pride, it's a little odd. And I guess I could go off on another tangent about the commercialization of Pride, but yeah, so I have seen some petitions about them getting involved in that, and I would I have to say, as long as they're selling products like that, I would
Oh,
agree.
I'd be interested. Now I'm interested in doing a video on this stuff because that's all very problematic. I mean, one of the things I find so problematic about these companies is this, well, we support this charity, or they create their own charity like this to give this to legitimize what the business is. And so people think that, oh, it's helpful. And another one is, oh, what is it? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's
Unique have the one
yes, it's
for, yeah,
the one that's
yeah,
supposed to be helping,
victims
victims.
of sexual abuse, I think.
Yeah. And,
Hmm.
I'm a victim myself, and going through all that is like, this is absolutely deplorable, and it's so problematic. It's not helpful whatsoever. And every single one that I look into, it's like there just becomes problems. But people, I think, that are involved with the companies are fed the lines. And I think it goes back to repeating the mantra over and over again. And so then that becomes truth, where they believe that this is actually a good and charitable organization that everybody in the world should be giving to. And to know that they're involved in
So
pride. Mm,
yeah, I read an account of someone who attended actually the Unique um, center, or I guess, and it was not a positive experience for her at all. So I mean, obviously, look, people have different experiences with different kind of counseling, but I also I think if you look at the numbers of how many people actually attend that
right.
um, I don't know exactly what they describe it as, a camp. I'm not exactly sure, but it's quite a low number of people. So I'm not sure how much value that has compared to maybe how much publicity it is given, or how much
Right.
prominence it's given in unique advertising. But yes, this particular ad, I'll have to send you a copy of it. You can stick it in or whatever. It's, what do you call a hair tie in America? Like a bob? I would call it a
A
bobble. What do
scrunchie,
you
like
call a bobble?
a scrunchie,
A
like you.
scrunchie, yeah. So kind of a
Yeah.
scrunchie, yeah. So a kind of a scrunchie, and it is a picture of a, when you've been using the scrunchie for too long and it needs to be like boiled to shrink back to
Uh-huh.
size or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a stretched out old scrunchie, and then a picture of the Like a Virgin product, and a little new fresh out of the pack scrunchie.
No, get out of here.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh
It's
my
it's
gosh.
it's like, it's so bad. It's
Oh,
so bad. I mean, I thought that the lip sense blowjob
what?
pictures was probably going to be a low point, but somehow Pure Romance really jumped it for me.
Well, that's interesting because it just seems like it goes back to me doing research, especially like when I've been doing it on the OneCoin leaders. It's like, what? Okay, one of them is bad. It's like, oh, you're just an awful person. I can't like you, and I want to like you. But then the next one is worse, and then the next, it's like they all just are so bad, and it's almost like the same thing. I feel like, well, the MLMs out MLM themselves. It's like they do something even worse, and it's like, you're really doing that. So this whole like a virgin product it just makes me, I mean, one, want to vomit, and two, want to punch someone. I mean, that's just basically what comes to my mind is,
I mean, I just think, like, as they're the job title for the people who sell it, like, the way that they're all have different names, consultants and makeup artist and whatever. It's sexual educator, which first of all implies that you have some kind of training
uh-huh.
in sexual education, which is, an actual thing that you could go and study to be. But no, you pay for your kit, and then all of a sudden you're a sexual educator. Okay. But also, like, the idea that someone who is a sexual educator made this graphic, because again, it's from within the structure. It's not a corporate image. It's somebody made this little meme for themselves to sell their product. To be clear, that's what I'm most interested in, is these ones that come from within the uplines and downlines and move through these message boards. But this image, like the idea that someone who is apparently a sexual educator believes that having lots of sex, I guess, is gonna stretch things out. Like that's not how biology works either. Like, yeah, I also have a minor in biology, so again, I'm not a good candidate for this one either. Um, that's not how that works. Yeah, uh, just like yeah, this virginity myth idea and propagating that in the year 2021. Cool. Um,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, to me, that makes me very uncomfortable as a woman to think like, what, you only have value if you feel like you're a virgin.
yeah, yeah. And if things are, I guess, uncomfortable or painful for you because you're
Too
using
bad.
tightening cream, no pleasure for you.
Who needs that? Forget about it. Oh, that is just also
So again, I think that's, but again, one of the critiques is that it's extremely like, I mean, that's beyond heteronormative. That is like into like patriarchal,
yeah.
um, what's that, handmaid kind of
That's exactly what I
territory.
was thinking about too.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. That's where I went, was like, oh my gosh, which I love that show, by the way. Find it utterly fascinating.
I have not watched the show because I was so traumatized after reading the book. I was like, I don't know if I can watch it. I think the book is on the shelf behind me somewhere there. Probably there's some fiction stuff lower down. But yeah, I just it's so important and like everyone should read it. But then I was like, I came away going, oh my God. So
See, and
I
I never
never
read
made
the
myself,
book, you know,
yeah,
but I will say, I mean, it's beautifully filmed. I mean, just the
yeah.
cinematography alone is absolutely stunning, and the costuming is just amazing. I mean, there's everything about, in the storyline. Of course, the storyline is so incredibly uncomfortable, but I think that's almost why it's important for people to
Yeah.
watch it, for the message of like
Yeah.
what is going on and how messed up this truly is. It's utterly fascinating to me. But I love like anything that's like a dystopian future. I love that
Same
stuff.
here.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
like,
I'm like, if yeah, if society is gone, I'm there for it. Yeah. Although I imagine like if zombies attacked, I would just be like, all right, bite me. I'm gonna be useless.
yeah, oh, I've
I
come to
have
that
no
conclusion.
skills.
I love The
Yeah.
Walking Dead, but I'm like, you know what? I am fully aware that I'm not going to be able to kick any zombie butt. You know, I mean,
Yeah. I'm not gonna run. Like if you want to just like I'll walk, but like if you shuffle a bit faster, like you can catch me. I'm not gonna. I don't want to run.
well, I don't want to keep it
Terrible, isn't
too
it?
much longer, but I mean, I would love sometime to go into more detail with you about just the language that is used through
Mm,
all of this, because to me, it's language is so very important, and how those words, and we talked about that earlier, about how words take on a different meaning, and that different meaning is something that I feel like it keeps you trapped within the bubble of slap on whatever, you know, MLM, because, you know,
mhm.
words aren't what they are. And I don't know if you're familiar with the song, and it's a song I love. It's by a band I love, the Tom Tom Club. Are you familiar with them?
I don't think so.
Okay, we're going to have to look it up. And the song is called Wordy Wrapping Hood. And it's a real fun song,
Okay.
but it's talking about like the meaning, the importance of words. And my
Hmm.
my vision was always like, if I taught English, was to play that song on the first day of school, because I thought, you know, like, because words are so very important. And I
Yes.
never taught English, although I did get, you know, like I could have, but I never did. But they twist words up, which I feel like further just, you know, keeps you, I guess, mentally abuses you in some way, because you're no longer able to critically think about how those words are being almost like weaponized.
I mean, I think we've touched on that there where we mentioned sexual educators. I mean, sexual educator has a meaning. It is somebody who has some sort of qualification or skill in the field of, you know, biology, obstetrics, or, you know, has presumably, you know, maybe got a nursing degree or something, and then focused on sexual education and delivers that training to people. That is a specific thing. It's not, I paid however much money for a starter kit. Similarly with the brands that refer to people as makeup artists.
Yeah.
To me, a makeup artist is someone who has gone to beauty school, has learned how to do makeup on many different skin types, on many different looks and whatever. It's not somebody who's paid for a starter kit. That you can't, if you pay for the starter kit, you then can't go to like the Mac Pro shop or whatever. Like you don't have a card that literally says you're a qualified makeup artist. So these words are yeah, are all, the meaning is altered. It's a fascinating, there's a whole linguistics, whole area of study, obviously. Discourse analysis is a whole methodology where you look at the sort of, but it's how humans perceive the world. We understand the world based on words. There's a fascinating study on, words which have gender in certain languages. So, for example, for us, a ship is a she. Okay. And there are words in which, a ship is a, le ship or whatever.
Right.
And there are words in which it's der ship, right? It's a man ship. And if you ask people to describe the ship and they come from those cultures, the people who come from the cultures where a ship is a woman will describe it as sleek. They'll describe it as fast. They'll describe it as, agile. They'll describe it as whatever. And if you talk to somebody from the math cultures where ship is masculine and you ask them to describe it, they'll talk about how powerful it is and how aggressive it is and how whatever. So the words we use shape our thinking is what I'm, I guess, trying to say there. And this is a really common thing in cults. And I know, again, I'm not saying all MLMs are cults, but there are some ones with some very cultic tendencies. And we see this again in cults where words take on different meanings, and then it becomes so you can only really communicate properly with the people in the circle who understand the hidden meanings of the words. And if you want to look at America right now, I mean, some of the QAnon stuff of having these these codes, and if you read this tweet, well, what it really means is this, and it's this sort of mindset where you turn things around in your mind to fit your own framework. And I think that we do see that in some MLMs where the words that they're using or the terms, the one that comes to mind immediately is from the Elbow blog, where she talks about neg ferrets. Her upline referred to anyone who had like negative energy and was going to steal, dream stealers. Another great one. These terms where you and I are described as caustic, neg ferrets, dream stealers. And actually, this is a person expressing concern for you, not an enemy. And we don't have to frame ourselves as enemies. It can just be someone who is like wants to have a discussion about this and raise some issues that we think should be talked about. And so yeah, within this mindset, this like linguistic programming almost, it is a problem as well.
A huge problem. The QAnon stuff that fascinates and scares and horrifies me. I mean, all of that stuff. I did do a couple of videos. One, I don't know if it was just the red shoes, but I looked at some of the symbolism that was used, and I went back into, because I have a master's in anthropology. I don't know if you know that or not. And so looking at how symbolism works within, and how what that does to the human mind, I started looking at that, and then I started picking apart, like, well, what is really the meaning behind all of this? Where is this coming from? And and it's like, okay, what you're saying is like correlation is not causation. It's like, all these things, you're just plopping these things that look like there could be a connection and then drawing these large conclusions from it, which I find, conspiracy theories fascinate me and it's interesting.
Yeah.
But, when it becomes like such a large percentage of people believing that it's reality, that's when I start going, oh, that's a problem.
Yeah, and like we know from the world that we're looking at today that there are people who can construct an entirely different reality to what objective reality is. And linguistic programming is one of the ways that people do that. And so again, I think just, it's something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is used. And people like within the MLM world love, Tony Robbins, and He's big into neuro-linguistic programming and it's like all of these things that anything that can be used for
I told you,
good.
I always get on your channel, I always get Tony Robbins ads.
Do you really?
Yeah, I texted you that recently. It's every time it's Tony Robbins ads.
That's so weird.
I don't want to walk on hot coals. Stop targeting me, Tony.
Stop it, Tony. It's so bizarre. Oh gosh. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time, so I'm going to pause this so we can say our chat with each other for a little bit. But thank you.
Getting late here.
I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
I had such a marvelous time chatting with Dr. O Sullivan. Not only is she knowledgeable, but she is a bucket of fun too. I am so grateful that she became interested in the world of multi-level marketing because we do not have enough academics who are analyzing and critiquing the industry. There are hundreds of academics who receive funding from the Direct Selling Education Foundation, which gives a very skewed view, in my opinion, about multi-level marketing. When your funding is backed by the industry, well, then you are inclined to produce research which legitimizes a business model which depends on an unpaid sales force of independent contractors who are seeking time freedom and financial freedom. Research like Dr. O Sullivan's is much needed because it paints a different picture and highlights problematic behavior. I hope to have her back soon because there are a lot of things I think that we can discuss. What are some topics you would like me to talk to her about? Did anything surprise you in our conversation? Thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate you tuning in, and remember, you're beautiful and I love you.